Hey guys, what is up? There's the Fast Break Report here, bringing you guys another vlog. So I'm going to bring you guys a bit of a different video, because I think the situation going on in Philadelphia is very volatile at the moment. I think like this is like one bad trade away from completely fucking the whole thing up, okay? And the reason I say that is because Joel Embiid came out and made a statement saying that I just want to win a championship, whether it's with Philly or with somebody else. Now, normally, okay, players who are not having second thoughts don't say or someplace else. Like, if you're Dame, it's like, I want to win in Portland. And if you're if you're any of these players that are actually dedicated to the team you're on, I want to win here. And honestly, Joel Embiid is a great player. I think nobody, he just won league MVP, even if it was fucking handed to him. Joel Embiid is a guy that's like, you can build a team around him. But the problem is, James Harden wants out, right? And Daryl Morey went out of his way to get James Harden there. He specifically wanted James Harden. He went from saying, I'm not giving up. He went from saying, I want draft picks to I'm giving up draft picks to get James Harden. I mean, this man went out of his way to get James Harden in a Philadelphia 76ers jersey, okay? Gave up way more than he probably should have to get James Harden. And after, 1 or 2 years, he's like, yeah, you know what, bruh? I've had enough. I'm good on the whole Philadelphia 76ers thing. He's played two seasons in Philadelphia. He has played a total of 79 games for the Philadelphia 76ers. He played 21 games his first year there after they traded for him, right? And then this past season, he played 58 games, 44% from the field, 38% from three, 86% from the free throw line on 21 and 10 a game. Now, here's the thing. James Harden's desired destinations are the New York Knicks and the Los Angeles Clippers, supposedly. The problem with this whole thing is the players that you would ask for in return for James Harden, if you're Daryl Morey, are players you are probably not going to get. First guy for the Clippers that immediately jumps off the page to me is Paul George. Okay? Paul George would be the guy I would ask for if I'm Daryl Morey. Like, listen, if I'm sending you Harden, I need to get something back in return. But the problem is, James Harden likes to change teams like women change underwear. And there's no surefire dedication thing that he's going to stay in LA after this season is over, if he gets traded there. Same can be said with the New York Knicks, okay? The Knicks, yeah, if you're Daryl Morey, I'd be asking for Jalen Brunson. Are you going to get Jalen Brunson? Probably not. Could you get RJ Barrett? Yeah, I think you could get RJ Barrett out of that, and maybe a couple young pieces out of that, maybe an Emmanuel Quickly or something like that. But I look at this, and I think to myself, I feel like there's not a cold chance in hell that James Harden gets traded to any of the teams he wants to get traded to. And in fact, if I'm Daryl Morey, I don't think I'm necessarily obligated to put my friendship with James Harden ahead of the team at this point. Yeah, James Harden did you a favor by opting into his player option and just allowing you to trade him. Okay? But the problem is, his trade value is not going to be a whole hell of a lot. It's just not. And when you consider the things that they would have to get back in return to remain a playoff team and remain a contender, they would have to go to a team like Chicago. They would have to go knock on Chicago's door and say, hey, I'll give you James Harden if you give me DeMar DeRozan or Zach LaVine. And I don't think Zach LaVine's going to happen. I feel like it would be DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan's 33 years old. He's on an expiring deal. There's no promise that he comes back. And on top of it, with the way that the Chicago Bulls offseason has been going, with Lonzo Ball being out again for this entire upcoming season, I just think to myself, okay, you're taking playmaking and defense and replacing it with playmaking and offense, okay? James Harden can run your offense for you. He can dish the rock. He can score. And maybe he stays. I don't know. Maybe he ends up liking Chicago. Who knows? But if I'm Daryl Morey, there is not a whole hell of a lot that I can get for James Harden at this point, because he constantly switches teams. He's got 1 year left on his deal. There's no promise that he stays with any team that he gets traded to. So if you're Daryl Morey, at this point, You need to put the team before your friendship with James Harden, especially after you went out of your way to acquire him, and now it's like, man, you know what? I'm not really too much fucking with Philly anymore. All right, so it's just the idea, man. Like if you're Daryl Morey, you gotta get something out of this, and the reason I'm making this video is because what you trade James Harden for, based on what we've heard out of Joel Embiid, I'm like, this could end up as another Damian Lillard situation very easily. Very easily. Because if you trade James Harden for pennies on the dollar, Joel Embiid's going to want out. Joel Embiid's going to be like, trade me to someplace else. Please, for the love of God, get me the fuck out of Philadelphia. That's what Joel Embiid's going to say. Because you know what? Not for nothing, but I feel for dude. I'm at a point now where, you know what? If he were to ask to be out and just say, you know what? I don't want to be a part of Philadelphia anymore. I don't want to be a part of the 76ers. I don't want to be a part of the future here. I cannot blame you. Because Ben Simmons kind of screwed you over. Now James Harden is screwing you over. I mean, you've been the guy. You have been nothing but a good teammate to these guys for the most part, other than Ben, because Ben kind of quit on you. But, like, it's just the idea, man, like, for whatever reason, people don't like playing either in Philadelphia, either they don't like the coach, or they don't like Joel Embiid, or they don't like being the number one option, or they don't like being here, or they don't like this, or they don't like that. I'm like, bro, what the fuck is so wrong with Philadelphia? So, all I'm saying is the situation is extremely volatile. And even though you have Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris, and I feel like Tyrese Maxey, like, I'm just going to be honest, even if they trade James Harden for pennies on the dollar, I think Tyrese Maxey is good enough to help get that team to where they need to go. Like, Tyrese Maxey is a stud. Put him out there at point guard, let him run your offense, and let him do his thing with Joel Embiid. Like, let Tyrese Maxey have a season. You know what I'm saying? Let him have a year. And I don't think it would be the end of the world. I think they would still be a playoff team. Maybe not as high-seeded of a playoff team, but I think they would still be a playoff team. But on the flip side, I think to myself, if you're Daryl Morey, you cannot trade James Harden for a bunch of role players. You could trade him for maybe some promising young talent. You could trade him for some like a DeMar DeRozan, okay, or something like that. A guy on an expiring deal who you might be able to bring in and maybe actually keep there to put next to Joel Embiid, which I think is best case scenario. Like, honestly, it's sad to say this, but I think DeMar DeRozan is like best case scenario for them at this point. Like, because even though DeMar DeRozan, dedicated player, I think he enjoys playing in Chicago. If you are the Chicago Bulls, you understand he's 33 years old, and turning DeMar DeRozan into James Harden, even though he might not stay there, and just getting a one-year flyer on Harden just to see if he likes it, like, I don't think it's the end of the world, considering you're losing DeMar DeRozan for nothing most likely in the next offseason anyway. So, you know, like, it's kind of like, what do you really got to lose if you're Chicago? You know? It's just like, I'm at a point now, man, where it's like, this could head south very quickly if Daryl Morey doesn't pull off a good trade for James Harden. And unfortunately, the market is not in his favor. So Daryl Morey is going to have to really, really do some digging and, like, find a guy that'll be willing to go there. Because honestly, Portland's not going to trade. I don't think there's any chance Portland trades Damian Lillard for James Harden just, like, straight up for that and picks and stuff like that. I just don't think that's going to happen. I don't even think Philadelphia has a shit ton of draft picks to offer Portland for Damian Lillard. But it's just the idea, man, like, if this trade goes sour, right, and Joel Embiid, like, is like, oh, you're getting me a bunch of role players and a bunch of guys that I have to play with to, like, make better. I feel like Joel Embiid's going to ask to leave if they don't get something decent for James Harden. And it's a very, very volatile situation. And I would almost bet money. Like, I would almost bet, like, $500 that James Harden doesn't go to any of the teams he wants to get traded to. Because if you're Daryl Morey at this point, keeping Joel Embiid happy in Philadelphia is now your biggest priority. It is not James Harden's happiness and where he wants to fucking go. The dedication now has to be to Joel Embiid. That's where the dedication has to be. And you know what, man? They got a new coach. Like, they're doing shit. It's just like, I like the idea of starting Tyrese Maxey. Like, I get it. Even if you do trade James Harden for pennies on the dollar, having Tyrese Maxey being your starting point guard is not the end of the world. But I just think you're going to need another scorer. And while Tobias Harris can do that, he's not like a super crazy reliable guy, I don't think. He's not a guy that I'd put the ball in his hands in the last, like, you know, for a last second shot. But a guy like DeMar DeRozan, absolutely I would. Because we saw what DeMar DeRozan has done in Chicago with last second shots and just taking over games and stuff like that. DeMar DeRozan is capable of that. And if you can get that and bring that to Philly, like, to be honest, Jimmy Butler's not a good three-point shooter. That, like, he's not great. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, he elevates his game in the playoffs and he ends up being better. But, like, DeMar DeRozan and Jimmy Butler are kind of the same in the sense that, like, they both are guys that do a lot of their damage from mid-range. And, like, yes, Jimmy's the better defender, but DeMar DeRozan just had literally the best defensive season of his career. I just think to myself, you know, getting DeMar DeRozan's dedicated too. Like, if he goes to Philly, he understands he has a chance to win, especially with Joel Embiid as a teammate. I think if you're Daryl Morey, like, you could get DeMar DeRozan to come back. And while I understand he's 33 years old, you can still get a good 2 or 3 years of basketball out of him before he really starts to fall off a cliff, I think. And I think that's better than trading James Harden for nothing. Or, I don't know, maybe you trade James Harden to Boston and get Jaylen Brown out of it. Like, that's not the end of the world either. Like, even though I don't think Boston's going to trade Jaylen Brown for James Harden, I just don't think that's going to happen. But, like, if you're Daryl Morey, man, you got to look around the league. You can't just go to New York. You can't just go to the Clippers and say, like, hey, I want this, even because those teams are not going to give those things to you. So, I don't know, man. We'll have to wait and see. But watch that Philadelphia 76er situation, man, because if Daryl Morey fucks that trade up for James Harden, I feel like Joel Embiid's going to demand a trade. So tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. A like helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more on the Fast Break Report. And out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.